Hey, and welcome to A Bolder Woman Speaks. I am your host, Liv, and I am super excited about today's show. Listen, I have an amazing guest. I hope you're ready. So listen, I have an amazing guest today, y'all. First of all, thank you for tuning in to A Bolder Woman Speaks. I'm excited about this guest. Can you tell I'm excited about this guest? I hope you can. Thank you for tuning in. If you are watching right now, please make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment, make sure you like, make sure you share, and most of all, make sure you take it all in. Don't rush your way too fast. Just sit back and listen and enjoy. The guest that I have today, listen, her name is Amber Handley, and she is an amazing woman of God, y'all. An amazing woman of God. She is a clinical chaplain. Okay, she is a makeup artist and an esthetician, and she is a survivor. All right. And when I asked her what made her a bold woman, she says, I think a woman living in her truth makes her bold. She said, I think that her ability to stand on her faith and the promises of God make her bold. And I think advocating for her needs make her bold. So listen, if that does not get you excited, then I don't know what to tell you. But I'm going to bring up our guests. Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much again for coming on and for just help walking this your testimony out with us. I'm excited to hear about it. I think everybody on the other end will be excited to hear about it, and that there'll be some bondage and some chains broken, just for
Yes.
the simple fact of you being a survivor, right? Um,
Woo.
so without further ado, like I want to jump right in.
Sure. I'm here. Let's do it.
Let's jump in. Tell me a little bit about your backstory. We got tons of questions, right? Tons of things I know we're gonna walk through, right? But tell me a little bit
Right.
about your backstory.
I'm like, where do I start? There's so much stuff. So I am a Chicago native, but living currently in Austin, Texas. So I was born and raised in Chicago, a little town called Aurora, so about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. Been in Austin, Texas for about 10 years, and even how my life has been full of kind of trauma, tragedy, which is, a little sad, but at the end of the day, the Lord works everything out for our good. So I lost my mother very early on in my life. I was 14 years old, and I lost her to a stroke and an aneurysm. And so I was left with my dad and my brother. And then that was in way back in 95. And then I ended up losing my brother. He was murdered in
Wow.
2014. And then I just lost my father in 2018.
Oh,
So, it's just been a culmination of things, right? And even how I came to Austin, I left very quickly due to domestic violence. I just up and left,
wow.
literally like packed me and my son in a car. My daughter stayed behind for a little bit and packed my car and drove 18 hours all the
Wow.
way here. It was that type of situation where I had to get out, and I had to get out fast. And so I've been here for 10 years. I love it here. It's a little different. It's a little slower than Chicago, but
Yeah.
I like it. It's a good place to raise my kids. So
Yeah.
I've been here kind of hanging out. And so I always knew what my purpose was, because I'm a believer of, if you go through, similar situations continuously, that's attached to your purpose. Like God's trying to get
Yeah.
your attention. So I knew very early on that I would be dealing with people in their grief and helping them get through it, because that's how my life started very early. So,
Yeah. Wow. 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 So So I
I
mean,
told you it's a lot there.
yeah, it's a lot to take in,
Yeah.
especially looking at you today and you being such a bold woman, such a strong woman. And of course, we all know that there on the outside we see one thing, and the inside there's been so many things that you've dealt
Right.
with. But as women, we often fight. We often fight to be bold, and especially through all the trauma and experiences that we have and that we face, because it really legitimately is a weight on us. And sometimes that
Right.
weight will try to snatch away our hope. It tries to snatch away our confidence, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Listen.
yeah, it really does. It does. And so to see you today, and knowing a bit of your backstory about, the abuse, and, even you being a survivor of that, and amongst other things, what, how have you continued to persevere in faith during the battles of abuse and some of the other things you also mentioned, before today, of you surviving?
Um, Really, honestly, it's God, right? So even before I knew, I was raised Catholic, which is completely different than where I am right now, faith-wise,
Yeah.
right? And so it's not that I didn't know that God existed, right? But that faith walk in Catholicism is completely different than
Yeah.
Christianity, right? And so I will say that it was the hand of God, literally, because even when I was putting myself in situations and doing whatever I wanted to do, operating out of hurt or grief or just whatever I thought, whatever my emotions told me to do, I was literally doing that. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I feel like. So if I feel like drinking, if I feel like smoking, if whatever it is that I felt like I wanted to do, that's what I was going to do. And it wasn't until about I really got saved, if you will, in 2003. My daughter was 3, and I just kind of was like, I've got like something different needs to take place.
Yeah.
And I was 23 at the time, and I was like partying, like I was living my best life at 23. But I knew that something needed to shift,
Hmm.
and so then I got, heavily involved in my church then and was kind of doing things, and then I fell off, but I always keep coming back. Like if
Sure.
I would fall off, something would happen and I would be like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I was very much getting in my own way. And then God would bring me right back. Like he would show me every time that he was faithful. He would bring me right back and be like, I'm sparing you from this. So I've watched my life flash before my eyes way too many
Wow.
times, more than I can count.
Yeah.
And so I really just know that it's him. When you just know, it's nothing that you've really done, or it's really not audible, or it's nothing like
Yeah.
no one wrote it down. No one really like was on a
Yeah.
megaphone. It was like, Amber, the Lord is trying to keep you from this. It really was the grace. It really was his mercy that every day I would wake up and be like, I need to do something else. He spared my life countless of times. And so nobody else can do that but him.
Sure. For sure. And I have to agree with you. When you know that it's him pulling on you, and when you know it's him whose hand is on you that's snatching you out of those pits, you just know. I'm not saying that
Hmm.
God can do that for everybody, but you know that there's a specific calling attached to it, so to speak. And so,
Right.
wow, that's amazing. So would you say, like, with when you mentioned being put out of abuse, or him protecting you from abuse, what was that abuse like that you were able to get out of, to the point that you drove 18 hours out of Chicago to Austin, Texas?
And again, that my upbringing was very chaotic, if you will.
Yeah.
And so when you grow up a certain way, you think that that's what life is like. You think that's what love is like. If y'all aren't fussing and fighting,
Mm-hmm.
then, that's not love. And so I very much would date those type of people. They say you date kind of who your father is like, if you will.
Yeah.
And even though my dad was a great man, he raised us how he thought he was supposed to,
Yeah.
which I don't agree with, right? Like,
Yeah.
if we had time for all of that, you'd be like, that's so weird. Why would you? But again, it was what he thought was best for us and what he seen being done. So I learned that as an adult, that he gave us what he could, but that
Right.
also led me down a path of my own destruction and what I thought love looked like. And so it was very
Yeah.
toxic. It was a lot of emotional abuse. It was more of that because it was my son's father and we lived about 30 minutes from each other. So it wasn't that he could be in direct contact with me, if you will. He wouldn't drive 30 minutes, but one day he got bold enough to do so. Like I thought I had it hidden where he wouldn't know where I lived. And one day I would lose windshield wipers off my car.
Oh,
My
wow.
car would be egged. And I'm like, who knows where I live that would want to, what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah.
Well, he found out where I lived and it was quickly like, and he would call and threaten me. Like, I pressed charges against him for harassment because he would call back to back to back and just, I'm going to kill you. Just wait until I see you. Like, and he
Yeah.
would just be doing all of these things. And I was like, and so I finally was putting it together. Like, no one else, I've lived in this town forever. I've never had this happen. And it was a string of events that took place with my son. And he tried to keep him, and I wanted to go. I took a friend with me to go get him, and he basically was like hiding, like he was trying to keep him. So he was upset about that. The next set of events took place where he was doing things to my car, and I literally moved from my apartment that I had moved into like 3 months prior. When I
Yeah.
say I moved out, like somebody could have just moved right into my apartment. I had to
Yeah.
leave everything behind. And I moved to my cousin's house, and I was there for about a week before I had a job opening here and just left. But again, I had been with this man for 4 years at this point,
Yeah.
on and on. And that's just what we would do. We would argue, we would fight, and I
Yeah.
thought it was normal.
You thought it was normal. The dysfunction became your reality. Yeah. Yeah.
Which, after you sit back and you're able to really analyze that, like, why do I
Mhm.
think that even you can hear other people's stories or watch movies or do whatever. And you're like, girl, you don't got to put up with
Right.
that even.
Right. Right. Until it's your reality. And then you're walking in it and you're like, wait a minute. And then you look back in hindsight, like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Right.
Being
So
trapped.
you say what?
Being trapped.
Being
Being
trapped.
absolutely trapped.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
the reality is that I think more people, it's easier for more people to be trapped than they think,
Yeah.
especially when you love and dysfunction, and then there's just the way you grew up, what that familiar place becomes, it becomes what you walk out each and every day.
Yep.
So so how did you I'm going to move on from the abuse, because there's so much to your story that I want to
Right.
bring out.
I know, right?
It's so much. But how did you ran away, you got, well, not ran away, but you left, you got out of that situation. What was the healing process like, because there was obviously a lot of roots that you had to uproot. There were a lot of things that you had to tear down, because those things that were your reality really was a falsehood. It wasn't real to you. It wasn't really who Amber is. It wasn't what God really truly had for you. So how did you begin to heal through that process? And I think that's going to be important for somebody on the other line of this to know
So
how to get through.
it was not an easy feat at all. Like, it took a very long time. Like, even though I left in this, I have a sister here in her family, her husband and children, and that was it. And so it wasn't like I got here and was like, okay, this is my fresh start and I'm going to move forward. Like, it wasn't very concrete for me, because again, I was walking away from everything that I knew,
Yeah.
and it still was very painful. Like, it took, I don't want to be that person, like, all of a sudden, miraculously, I was fine. Like, no,
that ain't the truth,
like,
right?
no, that I had to make a decision. Like,
Yeah.
it was a conversation with me. It was, Amber, you're now in your 30s. What are you going to do? Like, are you going to allow God to step in? Because again, it was very much me just being in my own way and being stubborn and not wanting to be in both places, wanted to be
Right.
blessed by God, but still want to hang out and kick it and do whatever I want to do. Right. And so it wasn't until I was able to make a decision and I found a church home. Like, so I started going somewhere, but it was very much one of those like motivational speaker type of churches, as
Yeah.
opposed to where I was really feeling like the move of God. And so even though I was making those baby steps, that was still critical to the very beginning of it.
Yeah.
And I was able to, spend time, really learn how to pray, because I wasn't a prayer warrior, if you will. Like, I just know I'd be like, Lord, I need your help. Like, they'd be very short, but it wasn't that I was spending like a whole lot of time with God.
Right.
So it was those baby steps that I was realizing who I was, because I never knew my identity. I didn't know who I was. And the more that I spent time with him and reading and praying and really being intentional about my own healing, that I was like, okay, I'm one foot in front of the other. Okay,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing. And then he'd bless me along the way and be like, see, I told you I got you. And I'd
Yeah.
be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is
It's
kind of working out.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think I think sometimes on the other end, so many people think they see where you are right now, and they just think that that's where you are. They don't see all
Oh,
the steps that you had to take
woo.
along the way. They might be comparing their chapter 1 to your 35, and that puts them in this place of comparison where they want to give up. So I think it's really important to talk about those small steps and how God uses those small things to turn them into
Yeah,
great things, right?
absolutely.
So that's amazing. You also, excuse me, you also mentioned about your, so how man, how pivotal was it for you to understand your identity for you to get to where you are right now?
Oh, very. I wouldn't be on this with you right now if I
Yeah.
didn't know. Well, it's still, even up until I'll probably say a year ago,
Yeah.
was still very much like, I know who I am, maybe I don't. Like every time that I was in a
Yeah.
situation, I would then question who I thought God told me who I was, right? I'd
Yeah.
be like, but you said this is who I am, but this situation is not lining up with
Right.
who you called
Right.
me to, who you say I am. So it was very much of, I'd be, and I don't want to say up here like I felt I've arrived, but I felt like, okay, I can breathe again. I kind of know what I'm
Yeah.
doing. I'm
Hmm.
moving forward, and something would happen and I'd be kicked back down, and it was literally like starting over, and then I'd fall
Yeah.
back in. But I think now it is when I'm in storms or I go through situations, it's before I would take it as so personal. I'd be like, the God, you hate me, or I'm just
Yeah.
doing everything wrong. And it's not. Now I've learned, okay, Amber, you're going through these things because you have to learn something. It's a part of your story. You're going to be able to help somebody else, is my take on it now, where before I didn't know who I was, or I thought I
Yeah.
did, and I didn't know. It was very
Yeah.
much like a back and forth situation. But there'd be no way I'd be sitting here or standing at all if I didn't figure out that my true identity and be able to stand on that.
For sure. It was it was like it was a part of his perfecting plan. And it takes me to this scripture that he who begins a great work, is faithful to finish the work. So
Yes.
that perfection, we're never perfect. We're never going to be perfect. So if he is
No.
starts a plan and he's perfecting, that perfection plan is always constantly going, right? He's always taking us from glory to glory and faith to faith. He's always constantly perfecting us. And so sometimes that might feel like we have to take a step back for him to
Mm-hmm.
get us back to where we're supposed to be. And I think that's so important because most people, and I know you can attest to this, think like you just said, that the process is punishment. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not, right? It's not, it's
Right.
not, it's
And
not.
that takes maturity to learn that, right?
Yeah.
You have to live a little while to realize that that isn't
Yeah.
what's happening. Like he's a God of faithfulness. Like he loves us. Why would he purposely want to hurt us, right? Unless it's all a part of his plan. And until you're mature enough in your faith, I think until you're mature enough in who he's called you to be and what your purpose is. Because if you're walking around and you don't know your purpose, then absolutely it feels
Yeah.
personal. It feels like, well, I don't want to
Person.
serve this God. Like, what are we doing?
Right. Right. Yeah, it does. You're right. It's a maturing factor. You have to read the
Mhm.
word and have to know the word, and that's what the word is for. Is to show us, which is this whole series is Bold Woman Speaks. Is to show what experiences people go through to know that you're not on a boat alone. You're not on the island alone.
Right, right.
That level of
Absolutely.
maturity gets you to that place where you can grab it and grab hold of it. Like, okay, God, I
Okay.
mean, we walking this thing out.
Okay, side by side. Okay, you're
Side by
with
side.
me.
That's right. That's
Absolutely.
right. So, okay. So you had your abuse, and I know you mentioned it was a very narcissistic relationship, but in the midst of that, you also were diagnosed with breast cancer. Breast cancer. So what was that?
Woo.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's like a whole punch, right? Like, what was that like to be
Um,
experienced?
it was very multifaceted, if you will. There are several different things taking place at one time. Like you're saying, I was married to a narcissist at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and going through such a what could be a terminal disease. Those two don't go well together.
Mm. No.
I'm like those things don't work out well. And so while I was trying to be focused on me and healing and not being distracted, because no one in my family, my my maternal grandmother died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but
Wow.
that was the only type of, and I was 10 at the time, so no one else has died of cancer, had cancer. I did not know how that worked. I again, at this point, I didn't have parents because my dad had passed away previously. I was diagnosed in 2019. And so I didn't know what I was doing, who was going to, like, I'm a grown adult and
Yeah.
I am like feeling very much like a kid in this moment because I
Yeah.
don't have your partner is supposed to be that person, right? That you're
Right.
like, we're walking this thing out and we're going to figure it out together. And whatever you're going through, we're in this together. And it was complete opposite of that. And so I was very much navigating through my health situation by myself
Yeah.
and with a couple key people in my life, my best friend and a cousin who I call, but she's more like a sister, but they live in Illinois. And so it
Right.
was very difficult to try to figure out, how to be in this like present, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, should I do this type of treatment? Am I going to do this surgery? What kind of surgery? I was thinking of myself, but not thinking of myself because I was concerned about how that would affect my husband. At the time, he was very much image orientated and everything had to look good and do all these things. And so where I was trying to should be focused on me and staying alive, I very
Yeah.
much was worried about what he was thinking. And it was terrible. It
Yeah.
was absolutely terrible.
What? So you said you were trying to think about how to be there for him or how that image would look for him. How was that molding though? How did you get molded into that type of mindset that you weren't when the time came where you needed to be thinking about you, like it was the most critical time of your life? How did that molding happen to where you're now just thinking about him?
I think I so the way I grew up, I was, and again, living in such a violent place, in a chaotic place, I had a very hard exterior.
Yeah.
So before I really knew Jesus, I was a fighter, and I would cut you with my words and not think twice and move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand, like I needed a balance, a medium place for that. So I was either one way or another. And so I got very to the extreme of everything's fine, very kind of passive. And I was older than him. I have children already. He didn't have children. Well, he had one son. And it was just very much, I knew, everything on the outside needed to be perfect. And we could never look like what we were going through. And that was just kind of implicated. That's just how he kind of ran his life. And so I adapted very much to that and wanted to just whatever he wanted, right? Whatever he wanted to do. I'm his wife. I got to be there for him. We were in ministry together. So it's very much like you're submitted to your husband, right? And
Mhm.
even though it wasn't, you'll bow down to me, like those words weren't spoken, but it's just the way that how life played out for us. It had to be. So I made the decision about having a mastectomy and only choosing a unilateral mastectomy because I only had breast cancer in my left breast instead of choosing a double because I still wanted some normalcy and I
Yeah.
didn't want that to affect him or for him not to find me attractive.
Yeah.
And it was very much like, well, what is he going to think about me? Like, I really went through a self-esteem issue because I was like, he doesn't like this. He likes things a certain way. He likes me to look a certain way. All these things is what was at the forefront. And then it was me after that was like,
Yeah.
Amber, you've got to survive. You have to worry about, you could die. Like, if you
Yeah.
don't take it seriously. And instead of being able to have those conversations with him to be like, okay, well, this is what the doctor is saying, he would be at the doctor's appointments and not present.
Wow. Wow.
And so it was very difficult to try to do that and be married to somebody who is not capable of empathy, compassion, sympathy. Those are characteristics that
Right.
he lacked.
Right. Wow.
Absolutely
Wow.
crazy.
It sounds crazy, but yet again, here you are, and I can only imagine just the layers that just had to be peeled, all the layers, all the hardness that probably grew in your heart just in life. You had dysfunctional family, you had chaos in your family that shaped you into this place of being in abusive relationships. You dealt with
Mhm.
narcissism in marriage, you dealt with cancer, and I mean anybody for real in real life, in our human ways, we in our carnality want to say, God, I'm done, right? I'm
Listen,
done. But you know what I'm saying? But yet here you are. And that takes boldness, because boldness is all about faith. It's all about having the courage
right.
to, to
Mhm.
just trust and to move forward. And to take all those experiences and allow God to make something out of them, right? Because his word says that he takes he everything works together for the good, right? For
Right.
those who love him. How did you get, like, the courage. I mean, you went through all of that, and to now advocate for women, because that's another thing. You're advocating. I want to get to that. And you're also a chaplain. How did you that takes love to be able to serve in that place. It takes love, and to do it with the right motive. Tell me how you got to that process, or how you got there.
Um, God really allowed me to see that this is not what he had planned. Like, this wasn't the design that he had in mind for my life, and that these things weren't my fault.
Yeah.
Like, how people's own characteristics, their own personality is on them.
Yeah.
And I can be very hard on myself, and it'll be like, well, what did I do wrong? Or I didn't do this. And that's just probably from my upbringing and always feeling that way. But when he was like, this is not on you.
Right.
Right? Like, yes, you have to take responsibility for the part that you played in it. You've got that down, but then everything else is on the other person. And
Yeah.
so when you can walk through that, like, let me begin to do that for you, to be able to let you see that, not even necessarily, I won't say a poor judge of character, but when people are manipulative at heart, when they prey on people and their weaknesses,
Yeah.
this is how you get caught up in that. So it looks one way in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what narcissists do. It's everything's great in the
Sure.
beginning and perfect, and they know everything, and everything that they know about you is what they play to. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was very much, that hindsight's 2020 type of thing, right? When you look back, and it was very strategic. And it was very like I could make a list of how our relationship played out. And that's just where I went to God. Like, I think being honest about where I was in the moment, to be like, how did I get here? What did I miss?
Mm-hmm.
Help me with my discernment. Give me wisdom. Give me more knowledge, so that
Yeah.
people can't take advantage of me anymore. Like, let me
Yeah.
stop thinking. I was very much okay, everybody, I'm trusting until I'm not, right? Until you do
Yeah.
something. And then I kind of had to not necessarily tweak it where I don't want to trust people, but let me just feel them out a little more. So that's where that discernment, really
Yeah.
being keen on
Wisdom.
that. Yes, I needed it, because I was like, he played to the disadvantages in my life, and I allowed it to happen, but it was structured in such a way that it felt like love. It felt like
Yeah.
he was really there for me, and it was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And so, you know how people have said they'll send the counterfeit before the real blessing,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
It was absolutely the counterfeit.
It
Listen,
looked like it looked
it
like
was like,
everything.
okay,
Yeah.
they're checking off boxes. Like,
Yeah.
this works. And then, no, it was definitely a plan, but it was not God's plan. But to
Yeah.
being honest with myself and in front of God, because he knows all things, right? And it was just like, how did I get here, and how do I get out of this?
Right.
Like, for me, and healing, like, because I can't stay stuck here.
For
I,
sure.
I need to be able to move forward, because again, I find myself in this situation. So who am I going to help? Who are you sending to me to be able to be what they need, and you can be able to speak through me to be able to help them?
That's right. That's right. So you went through uh, you went through every opposition. You went through you did the self work, you did the inner work, so that you wouldn't get back to that place again. You took all those things, and didn't harbor onto it, so that you're not living a life of bitterness and unforgiveness, is what it sounds
Right, right.
like. And now you're like, okay, God, now how are you going to use it? How are you going to use it? So how are you using it now? Like, how are you advocating for other women?
So I am we kind of left out a piece. I don't know if I'm gonna slide this in here somehow.
Slide it on in.
Um, I so a situation took place during the pandemic, and that was kind of my breaking point. I was sexually assaulted by my ex-husband,
Okay.
and I was like, "What are we doing?" Like, to not be graphic and not go through a whole thing, it was absolutely terrible. It was absolutely terrifying. I did not see it coming. It was crazy. And I, like, stopped everything. Like, at the low, I thought before I was at the lowest points that I've ever been in life, but this was a whole new low, because
Yeah.
again, I thought I had done the work. I thought I was at a different position in my life. So I was already advocating for breast cancer patients, and just do. I've God's naturally gifted me to be able to talk to people and counsel them. That's why I chose the degree that I have to be a psychologist and do these things, because that's what I was already naturally gifted to do. So I was already helping women and partnering with this place called Breast Cancer Resource Center, volunteering with them. Anybody that I knew, that was going through a similar situation, and particularly us women of color, there's a different way that we need to be treated and learn how to advocate for ourselves. So I was very much already kind of doing that, but not necessarily, I wasn't advertising like, hey, this is what I do. God would just bring people to me. And then I got to this particular situation and was like, I don't want to help these type of people. So this can't be why you brought me through this. Like, I don't even know where to begin with this. Like, what do we do? How do I get here? And that was a very hard stop for me. I was like, Lord, okay, we've been through all kinds of things, and you told me that you would heal me from breast cancer, and you did. And then here we are. This can't be. But he absolutely, this was probably my shortest healing time, which was kind of weird for me, because I know people are judgmental. That's just how they are. And
of course.
I felt like, well, am I already through this? Like, we were a part of a different ministry, and that how it shaped out, how trying to get help, trying to tell people what happened was not a thing. You will not talk about this. You will not tell anyone that this happened to you, because it's going to look a certain way.
Sweep it under the rug. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, this is the secret and it won't leave out. And so even while I was trying to get my leadership's help and to do, like, I was trying to get every help that I could get from the people that I thought loved me and knew me and cared about me, and every door was closing. Wow. And so I went through what's called EMDR therapy. It's a trauma therapy, and it's very intense. And that allows for some pretty quick healing, because it's very in your face. It's very much, this is your thing. This is what you're dealing with. So that, and me just being like, God, if you don't bring me out of this, I'm not strong enough to do it myself. I quit. I absolutely quit, and was like, and so then the opportunity came because of the resources that were provided to me being a rape victim. I found it. I was like, oh,
now you
okay.
The light came on.
Okay, I was like, well, here we go. And so every time when my focus is able to shift on somebody else and how I can help them, then it's easier for me to get out of it for myself, because I'm like, okay, how do I use this experience to be able to help somebody else? So I did that. I became a sexual assault victim advocate to be able to help women walk through that process. We have resources here where you can direct them to where they need to go. And being that I was married at the time, that is not something that people think happens
for sure
in your relationships, because they're like, you're in a relationship with this person. And particularly, especially a marriage being a Christian and in ministry, it's like, your body belongs to your husband. Yes and no.
Yes and no. Yes,
like,
and no.
There's still boundaries that need to be respected.
Sure.
There are things that still need to take place. And I just was like, this can't be a thing. I was like, what is going on? Like, this, and there's so many women I know that are dealing with the same type of thing because they're with their partner. And it's unfortunate that it's really in ministry where I find women are abused a lot and are not getting the support that they need. One, pastors are not always trained to know how to handle traumatic situations, and especially rape, because it's such, when the family is going, all a part of the congregation, the pastors will find themselves in a, right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And to either know to outsource, to send them somewhere else so they're not handling it, or even knowing the correct things to say immediately if someone comes to you with those type of traumatic situations. They don't, unless they've been through a training, they're not equipped to be able to handle it. And if you mishandle it from the beginning, like it was mishandled with me from the beginning, you can ruin someone's life.
For sure.
I was absolutely questioning everything I thought, everything I knew. I questioned God. I questioned the leadership that he had me attached to. Like, what are we? It's a different dynamic. And when people aren't supported in such a traumatic situation as domestic violence or sexual assault, rape, those type of things, and you're in a marriage,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a whole nother world that you are not strong enough to be able to get yourself out of.
Out of,
You
yeah.
alone can't do that.
Right, right. And that goes to what I was thinking that, you know, even in your weakness, God was made strong, you know, in some of those lowest
Listen,
moments, those lowest moments.
absolutely.
And he allowed all of those experiences, especially the experience of you being sexually assaulted by your husband, to be a door. You know, you became a gateway for others. You know, now that you experienced it, you know, you dealt with what went on in the church and in ministry, and now you know what is needed to add, you know, to ministry. So that they can create a space, a safe space, so it can be a place of refuge for those who are abused, so that you don't go and turn to church hurt. And so so it's very clear, right, that God used
Right.
you. You know, He used what the enemy could have used, right, against you,
Absolutely.
for something that was good. Because if He did not, we could have this could have be a whole nother story, right? It could be
Right.
it
We
could be
wouldn't
a
there
whole.
you I wouldn't know you, you wouldn't know
Yeah,
me,
I
we
wouldn't,
wouldn't be
exactly.
talking.
Exactly. This would be a whole different story. And so it's just remarkable to see that, one, you're a beacon of hope, right? You're a beacon of hope. And also you are your gateway to allow God to use you as the
Right.
bridge between, you know, just the regular individual person and in church ministry to get the help that they need. And so I just
Right.
honestly find that amazing. I do want to ask you, you know, for anyone that might be dealing with, I mean, you've dealt with so much, and there's so much to unpack, and there's so much to highlight. You got a whole highlight reel here, but from a person who did go through abuse in a marriage, right, and narcissism and those types of things, what are the key ways to, one, understand that you're going through it, or that what you're dealing with, and two, how to set up those boundaries, and three, if you need to run or you need to get out, or it's time to bring somebody in.
I would definitely say, it's those red flags that we see, and then we're like, no, it'll be fine. He'll change or she'll change, right? Because it can be either. I'm not that person that, like, abuse only happens to women, right? Or
Yeah,
even rape only happens to women, or only men are narcissistic. That's not true.
yeah,
This can go either way.
that's right.
And
Excuse me.
I would definitely, how I kind of work that through me, I can just only use me as an example, really,
Hmm.
is listening, right, to the Holy Spirit. Especially if you know God, when things are not right, he'll give it to you. And to be able to have a support system, so you have to know who's in your corner. I don't think that you can, outside of God, right, because that's first and foremost. That'll always be the number one source. But then He gives us the correct people in our lives to know, to be like, hey, can I talk to you about this, or can I tell you about it? And be able to bounce those things off and have the support. Because if I didn't, I would have had to stay, in my house with my ex-husband
Yeah,
if I didn't have anywhere to go. And
yeah,
so I would say having a support system. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. You have to be able, we're now in a time, right, where we're kind of openly talking about mental health, right? And
that's
it's safe. It's cool now. It's part of the
yeah.
culture.
It's a cool
We
thing,
can do
right?
that. I say all the time, Jesus in therapy. Okay, like it's though coffee is in there too, but Jesus in therapy.
Right.
Um, you have to be able to know what's going on, and if you are in a situation, right, I'm never an advocate that's going to say divorce your husband, right? Like, I
Hmm.
don't get in people's business enough to be like whether they should stay or go.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the Bible talks to you about, that is one way that it's okay to have a divorce, right? Is if you're being abused, but you definitely have to reach out and let somebody know what's going on. We have so many resources. We here in Austin, there's a place called Safe. There's another one called Hope Alliance, where those are those anonymous tip lines. Those are those things where you can call in hotline and
yeah,
say, this is what I'm going through. And they are able to be like, we can get you out of your house. You have to
yeah,
be able to know, really a trusted person to be able to know those resources for you, so
yeah,
that you can go. So if you're still having to stay in your home and you're working on an exit plan, you definitely have to have an exit plan. You've got to be like, okay, so if this happens again, what are my next steps? Particularly if you have children
yeah,
involved, you need
yeah,
to be able to have a plan. And there's a way to lock things in your phone. Like, you've got to have hiding spots, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to be able to hide things, be able to, everybody's watched What's Love Got to Do with It, right? And you've just got to
Yep.
start putting money to the side. You've got to be strategic, but without God's guidance, you don't know how to really make a plan. So I would definitely be seeking God to be like, okay, I know that you don't, this is not what you have for me. So how do I get out of this? Right? Like
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
much like, Lord, I need a plan. I need your direction. I need clarity. I need you to
Yeah.
tell me what I'm going to be doing, because it is, some people's situations are life or death.
For sure.
You have to know your police department. A lot of them have victim advocate or a victims unit. Here in Travis County, they particularly have that. So if you're in an area that has those type of resources, there are your go-to. All of these websites have, where you can hit exit and something else comes up on the screen. It's not in your search history. Or the people that know me, people get referred to me because they know what I do. Some of them know what I've been through, to be able to know, because you've got to build up your strength and your confidence to be able to carry out a situation, whether you're leaving and to know if you need to leave. Again, I think it's between you and God. Like you've got to know what your situation is and realize where this person is. I'll be 100% honest with you. If a person is narcissistic, you should leave.
They're not going to change.
They don't have the capacity. So that's the
Yeah.
thing about them. People even trying to take it so personally, it's really, they're in a fantasy world. They've been through their own traumatic experience that's caused them to be in this fantasy world, and they don't see outside of that. So they're very incapable of not being able to do a lot of things that we think are just rational.
Right.
Like common sense is not common for them. And wanting
Yeah.
to, hoping that your partner will change. First of all, they've got to get to the point where they think it's a problem. And so
Right.
narcissists don't think that they have a problem. So they don't think they have a problem. Them going to counseling is probably not going to happen. And then if they're in counseling, them doing the work to want to change, there's like less than 1% that really takes place. So unless your person is going to be willing to do the work, it's kind of up to you. What's your safety is important. If you have
Yeah.
children
What,
are important. Like,
what is your
what are you gonna do?
livelihood? Like, what do you want for your life at the end of the day, right? Like, how
And
do
you've
you want
got
to
to be
live?
able to be, we not necessarily an independent woman, because I'm remarried and he's great. That's a whole nother story. I'm like, but I need him, right? First of all, he's 6'2", so he can do. I'm only 5'2". He needs to be able
Okay.
to do some things. Okay, I can't reach things,
Right.
but you've got to be able to have something of your own, right? Like a business, a work, even if you only work part-time. Even being a stay-at-home mom is something. But if I literally left and had nothing
Yeah.
because I was recovering from a surgery. I was on 60% disability, and I walked away with a car,
Wow.
like and clothes. So you've got to be able to have something that if anything were to happen, even if they were to just pass away and it wasn't an
Yeah.
abusive situation, you've got to be able to have something to fall
Fall back.
back on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that takes a bold woman. All right. That takes a very bold woman to say, I got to go and I got to get out of here. So,
Right.
wow. 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 So, okay. Where can, if someone wants to reach out to you, if they want to be able to connect with you, if they're going through some of these things, these experiences, I mean, from chaos, dysfunction to anything that you've talked about today that we know you advocate for, right? And God has pivoted. We've seen the
Woo!
pivot, but
Okay.
you're still in that same vein of just advocating and just counseling women. How can they reach out to you?
Sure. So I have a email address. It's super confidential. So they can leave things anonymously. They can fill out a form, but it's freedom .counseling22@gmail.com. My Facebook page is my personal page, but people inbox me anyway, which I'm just Amber Handley on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm Amber_Handley and the number 8 on Instagram. But you can find me all the ways. But to be able to
Wow.
reach out, again, everything is super confidential. I provide, if it's something that I don't do, I know my lane, okay?
That's
And so
right.
my lane, going to direct you to where you're best suited. You know, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, or I'm not fitted with
Yeah.
everybody. And so if I feel like, you know, I can't service them, or that they're a better fit somewhere else, I have a ton of resources that I
Yeah.
can send them on to someone who's better suited for them.
Yeah. And that's important. That's important to know. And it takes
Absolutely.
major integrity to do that.
Yes. I don't
Um,
think I don't want all the people. I don't think I
right.
can help
We
everybody. I
even
want who
right.
God sends me, the
Even
clients that
Jesus knew
God
he
has.
couldn't handle everybody, right?
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Right. Wow. Wow. I don't even know what to say. All I can say is thank you for standing up. Thank you for walking in your truth. Thank you for being a bold woman. Thank you for speaking out about it.
Ooh,
It takes great boldness to stand up and say, I'm going to tell my truth. I'm going to walk in it authentically, because while it may have shattered you, while it may have broke you, you know, it was through those very things that God was able to refine you. So Amber, thank you. Thank you so much for
thank
just,
you.
yes, thank you for serving the kingdom in this way. Because speaking up and just being a walking, living epistle is what that's what we're here for. So thank you
Yes.
so much. Wow. Um, all
Right. Well,
right.
I'll
So
just say to God be the glory, of course, because I wouldn't be doing any of this, talking about any of this if
yeah,
it wasn't for him. I don't take any credit for it. I really am just kind of like, whatever you want to do, we're
that's
doing it.
it.
So
That's it. Just we yield to
it's
him
really
and say
him.
whatever you want. That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, thank you, Amber, so much for
Thank
coming on the
you.
show. I appreciate you so much. I pray that we stay connected. Uh,
Absolutely.
and you guys, she gave your email. You can again reach her at Amber Handley on Facebook. And it's Amber Handley _8 on
It's Amber_Handley 8 on
Instagram.
Instagram.
Okay, so
Mhm.
yeah, follow her. She's an amazing woman of God. She's powerful. She's bold, and she's speaking her truth. Amen. So thank you, Amber.
Amen. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you love this show, if you sat and watched it all the way through, please leave your comments, please share, please subscribe to the channel. And if you are even remotely dealing with anything like this, please reach out to domestic violence, or if you just need somebody to talk to, reach out to Amber. This A Bolder Woman Speaks is all about speaking our truth. It's about telling our testimonies, because we know not only do we overcome by the word of our testimony, other people will overcome about over the word of our testimony as well. So bolder women, we have to walk, we have to stand up, we have to walk authentically, we have to walk in our confidence, and we have to move with authority. And that's what makes a bolder woman. So I thank y'all for tuning in. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook at A Bolder Woman. Follow us on Instagram at A Bolder Woman Official. And also, again, subscribe to this channel. And we also have a merch line. It's at abolderwoman.com. So get you some merch. Get you a shirt, a t-shirt, a coffee mug, or a journal. And listen, just continue to be bold. We love you.